Again, my name is Tracy. For those of you who don't know me, this is Brannon, and we wanted to warmly welcome you to our farm. We thought it'd be really cool to have this workshop just to kind of bring everybody together. Obviously, we're deeply honored for Jim and Tom from the Downwood Flock to be here. They've traveled all the way from the UK, and they're going to really talk to us about how to build a quality flock from the ground up, which is really awesome. For me, I think what's so special to me about today is that all of my love for Kerry Hill started with a video that Jim posted. It is totally your fault. So Jim posted this video, and I think all of us have seen it. It got millions and millions of views. She's the most beautiful creature I had ever laid eyes on, actually. I mean, I can't tell you how in love I was with her. And I think when I first saw it, I was on a mission just to find that sheep. And I thought, you know, maybe they're in the United States. Well, I couldn't find them. I pulled up Rick. I think I messaged him a couple of times. I don't think we connected. I reached out to Jim, and Jim said, I think there's some breeders. I think this was maybe back in, I don't know, it was years ago. But anyway, that's where I started my breed up program. And I just started doing the AI. And just like all of you, I started that journey. We now have 2 full-blooded embryo babies over there. And they're beautiful. But my percentage, lambs and animals are just as beautiful. It's such a cool thing. And I love all of my sheep. So I'm excited that you're here, and hopefully everybody will work with us today. And we're going to go through some slides.
I'm Rick Farnsworth. I live down in Madison County, just north of Charlottesville. Been raising Kerry Hills since 2006. My sheep journey generally started in the early 80s when I was in Future Farmers of America, and I raised Suffolk and market lambs out in Oklahoma. I got the Sheep Producer Award for 1982 for Harrah County, Oklahoma. Hey. I know, yeah, I still have it. And then, undergraduate, graduate degree, jobs, postdocs, and I was also in the Army, Army Reserve, National Guard, flew helicopters, and I was afforded the opportunity to do a tour of the Middle East on Uncle Sugar's dime. So I spent a year in Iraq in 2003 and 2004. When I came back, my employer had afforded me the opportunity to seek other employment while I was gone, which I really appreciated. So I got a new job, and so I'm a scientist. My PhD is in cell and molecular biology, so I had run stem cell biology labs at George Mason. And then I went to work for a company called Battelle Memorial Institute, and they're the largest nonprofit science and technology contract research organization in the world. And worked initially in Arlington, and then a job opened up in Charlottesville and said, hey, we want you to come down there and work. So 2004 timeframe, I moved from Northern Virginia, Manassas, down to Charlottesville. We bought a little farm, and I'm a sheep guy, so I want to get sheep. And it was the property we got was 9 acres, and it was set up as a horse. The woman that we brought the place from did Holsteiners and some other dressage horses, warm bloods. So we had this horse barn, and we had a pasture. So I wanted to get some sheep. I was looking around at different breeds, and I had read this article about, I think it was hoof and mouth. It was one of the diseases that wiped through England. And there was this article, you might have written it, that was talking about how sad it was that you had these heritage breeds in the UK that were at risk of being wiped out, and because they weren't widely distributed. And the one that I saw of the pictures was the Kerry Hill. I probably was not inspired by your video initially, but I'm sure it was Downwood blood in there somewhere. So I thought, it'd be great to do Kerry Hill. I bought a couple of Leicester Longwools, also a heritage breed here in the States that people were breeding up. And I was looking at them. I just didn't like them. They were, like big sofa pillows. They didn't have any personality. So I, we called them Polly and Esther. They were a nice matched pair. And the kids loved them. I thought the kids were going to get into showing sheep, but they didn't have as much interest as I had. So I started nosing around trying to figure out where you would get Kerry Hills and if I could import embryos. And then I found out, you can't do that. USDA says no. So I reached out to Yvonne Brown, who was I think she was the secretary of the Kerry Hill Association back at that time. I looked through what it took to import semen, and it didn't really seem that hard initially. And it is a goat rodeo of epic proportions to do it. It's not conceptually difficult, but going through all the steps is a pain in the ass. I sent it to American Breeders here in Purcellville. They're a cow beef AI organization, and they've had my semen straws there for 15 years now. Trying to find somebody to do AI, also not an easy thing, circa 2005, 2006. And I happened upon Rachel Weiss, who you all know. And she was just starting her practice, and she didn't have her place yet in Pennsylvania. All she had was her trailer, and she had this traveling roadshow where she would show up and do the AI for you. It's like, okay, so I've got a vet, and I've got the semen, and I've got a place. So then I was looking for sheep. And John Terry was pretty adamant, because I was thinking about getting a couple of different breeds and then seeing how it all kind of shorted out to improve like the basic genetics on the ewe side. And he's like, no, it has to be border Chevy, only border Chevy. It's like, okay. So I went through NAIL, the National Sheep Expo, and looked for who was winning the NAIL shows in border Cheviots. Mostly I was looking for ewes, so best group of three, best group of three, best group of three, or ewe-lamb combinations. And this guy, John Eaton, kept popping up. He was like 5 years in a row, he was winning somewhere in that category. His sheep were placing. It's like, well, I want to get strong foundation ewes because, the male genetics is great, but, us males know that we're really not that important. We're just carrying a little bit of genetic material. It's really the ewe that's important. So I went to his flock. He had a nice setup in, I think, Red Lion, Pennsylvania. And I bought a half dozen of his ewes and brought them down to Virginia. And then we AI'd them, and Rachel came down and did it. The first year we AI'd, I had 1 of 4 take, and she had twin boys. And that was just wonderful. It's like, because you can AI boys if you want to, but they don't appreciate it, and you don't give them anything for it. So, I can't give enough props to Rachel. She does a great job. When she was first starting out, she was traveling around with her trailer, and she would come down and do it. And we would make her cinnamon rolls, and it'd be a big thing. And then as she got bigger and more established, got her place in Pennsylvania, she's been doing more and more, I think, deer than sheep, actually. And she also does this traveling roadshow with her same trailer where she'll go throughout the Midwest, and she'll do 400 or 500 sheep a day for 3 or 4 weeks, and then take a break, and then do another 3 or 4 weeks, yeah. So my son was initially interested, my older son was interested in being a veterinarian. So I said, hey, you want to travel with Rachel? I'll ask her if she's interested. And she said, yeah. So he went on a roadshow, and it cured him of ever wanting to have anything to do with veterinary medicine ever. So now he works as an IT help desk guy. He's that, he wakes up in the middle of the night screaming, collects, So anyway, so that was a lot of fun. So then I started breeding, and we had our first 50 percenters, and then the next year she bred again, and we had 100% that time, so it was really good. Now I've got 50 percenters. Now we're talking 2008, and then another year. So now I've got a 75 percenter Prince, and then a couple of 50% ewes. And my job had taken a turn, so I was actually traveling overseas. I was building a biosafety level 3 laboratory in Tbilisi, Georgia, the country, not the state, which was a lot of fun. I had a project in Georgia, a project in Armenia, 2 projects in Kazakhstan, 1 in Tanzania, 1 in Uganda, and then 1 in Iraq and Afghanistan. It was 1 project in 2 countries. So I was traveling a lot. And if I've ever interacted with any of you via email and you felt that I was aloof or kind of a jerk, it's not that I'm a jerk or aloof. It's that I get these crazy emails from these crazy people all the time about sheep stuff. And most of them are scams, or they're just looky-loos and not really serious about it. And I'll just this is what I got, let me know. And if people follow up, great. If they don't, that's also great, because I'm not really doing it to build, I wasn't doing it to build a community. I was doing it to initially to have a reservoir of genetics here in the States, in case, that was sort of the initial thought. And then it's just been a hobby that we've carried on. So circa 2010, like I said, I'm traveling to the former Soviet Union, Central Asia, Africa for work, and my flock is going out of control because I'm not selling any sheep. We're eating the boys, and we're keeping the girls. And the Suchar, who several of you know, had reached out to me and asked about buying some sheep. And I said, yeah, I'd be happy to do it. Same kind of thing. If you want them, this is where I am, let me know, blah, blah, blah. And then she said, yeah, we're kind of thinking we don't want to do it because it's a long way. And I'm like, I'm not doing this to sell the sheep. I'm not doing this to make money. I paid about $350, $400 a piece for the ewes, the border Cheviots. Nice sheep. I'm kind of I don't have room for them. I've only got 9 acres. They're killing my pasture, and I'm leaving my family to do all the work while I'm gone. So I called Sue up and said, hey, if you want my sheep, I'll give you my sheep. I'll give you the whole flock. But you have to take them all, because I don't want to doink around with trying to figure out who's going to take which sheep when. And I didn't put any ads out. So she came out, and they came out, I think, in a Toyota pickup truck with a camper shell on the back. And there were, I think, 3 50%, and then my four the foundation used, a ram lamb, a couple others. And then I was storing the ewes with my 75% ram lamb, because I thought he's 4 or 5 months old. He's fine. He's not going to breed them. So she got them, and he'd actually pegged them all. So at 5 months old, and this is Prince, who might be in some of your registries. So so she came and she gathered them all up, and then they said, hey, we just can't fit all these sheep. And they called me, and I'm in Tbilisi. It was like 3 a.m, and my wife says, they're not going to take them all. It's like, well, then they're not going to take any, because that was our deal. It's like they knew how many there were. They knew how big their thing was. If they don't want them, they can drive back to Maine. And so we had a little conversation on the phone. Like, okay, so he's just, we got it, shoved all the sheep in the back of the truck and drove 12 hours back to Maine. And that was the foundation of her flock. And since then, I've sold other sheep to other people, mostly, onesies and twosies, people that I never hear from again. And then other people like him that I, developed more of a relationship with. So that's sort of how it started. I'm at F4 on my rams, and I've got a F3.25 and ram that I'm using 90.625%, and then some ewes that are F3.75. So, you start out 50%, 55, 87.5. Oh, well, sometimes you breed the 50% to a 0, and then you've got a 25, and now instead of 25, you've got 62.5. So I've done a lot of that. So, the numbers, they work if you match them up. And then whenever I do I've been keeping it basically on an Excel spreadsheet for the last 15 years, and I'll track which percentage of which ram they're coming from. So it'll be, and if I've given you any pedigrees, it's usually that. It's like, 62.5% Oak Tree Charles, 18.75% Oak Tree Teddy, and 7.2% Tom, or whatever it is. So it's just like feedback. But we all know from a genetic perspective, if you only represent 5% of the DNA, you probably aren't even in that animal anymore. But, from a heritage perspective, just knowing where they came from. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing. I usually try and keep about 5 ewes going. That's what I've got now. And I usually keep 2 rams. And if people want them. This year I had all boys again. So this is the second year in a row I've only had male sheep. So, yeah, it's awesome. So really appreciate it.
Will you do embryos, or will you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was sort of, I was going to AI the year before last, and then I found out that this embryo thing had come. They changed the regulation. Mother fudgers. I've been doing all this work all this time, and I could have just waited. And I would have spent less money to buy a couple of embryos in 2020 than I would have in all the time I've spent for the last 15 years. So, yeah. So that's sort of the journey.
Thank you thanks for sharing. That's awesome.
So John Wilkes, I'm currently I'm a trade consultant for the UK Agriculture Horticulture Development Board, AHDB. Based in, I live in Washington, D.C. I cover mostly sort of the meat, sort of the red meat exports from the UK. But also the genetics part of my role is to promote ovine genetics here in the US. So I've had a lot to do with that over the last sort of 7, 8, 9 years, really, even before we had the ability to import embryos. And so through my role with AHDB and the UK Export Certificate Program, they also promote UK genetics globally, whether that's kind of, ovine, bovine, or whatever. I work very closely with Dr. Matt Rolston. Now, you may know of Dr. Rolston. Dr. Rolston's up in Maine. And Matt acts as sort of first receiver for UK embryos coming into the US, either from FarmGene or from AB Europe. He's a veterinarian, so he kind of knows the ropes here. And he tends to be where the embryos pass through on their way to you people. And so Matt and I, we work quite closely together. So he provides me with some updates and some numbers. And actually, so far in the 2 years that embryos have been open, we've exported from the UK 1.7 million GBP, so over $2 million worth of embryos of all sorts of breeds. That's all sorts. That's Suffolk, Texel, Dutch spotted, the ubiquitous Swiss Valley Black Nose, of course. And so it's going quite nicely. And so for me to see the Kerrys coming up on the rail is most interesting. And just on a serious note, Rick, you were talking about foot and mouth disease. And I think that a thing to point out to the Kerry breeders in the UK is, say we get wiped out with foot and mouth disease, if you've got a viable, pure genetic population here, were we to get Armageddon, then at least you've got genetics over here which, are safe. And it works both ways as well. But I mean, we do tend to get things like foot and mouth, and so it's just something worth bearing in mind when going forward. I know the Lincoln Longwool people are very much trying to look into work together because of the UK and the US breed societies work together. So I'm just chucking that in. That was kind of just came from what you were saying. Yeah, beef farmer originally, and as a young man about this big. My father kept Kerrys on the farm commercially. This is back sort of in the late 60s. So the first yow I ever lambed was a Kerry yow, and the ewe was bigger than I was. And so that was the first sheep I ever lambed. And I can recall going with my father to the ewe sale at Kerry, the original ewe sale on the ewe sale field, and seeing probably 3,000 ewes penned. That's not the rams, that's just commercial ewes. And yeah, so that dates me. That's 1941. I wasn't there then. Yeah. I have. I like that. I haven't got a picture of that, but it was. But the numbers weren't at that level, but there was still a very healthy population of Kerrys there. And so my dad would buy a couple of pens of Kerrys, and they were we had a dairy farm. He ran a flock of about 80 or 90. They were put to a Suffolk ram for commercial lamb production. We weren't pedigree breeders. We were just, we ran them as a commercial, as part of the farm operation. And I took the farm over when I was probably too young. Various things happened, and I took the farm over when I was 20. And like everybody else, I was seduced by the EU and subsidies and, more and bigger and better and leaner and keener. And so I took the decision, we kind of phased the Kerrys out, and I went like everybody else did at the time to the mule in the UK. The mule became the kind of dominant breed of crossbred that produces our lambs. And so the Kerry had its nose pushed well out of joint, as did other breeds. For example, like the Clun. Now you may have heard of the Clun Forest, and this is what I wanted to talk about. The Clun Forest and the Kerry come from exactly the same place. On the Welsh border is the town of Kerry, and just over the other side of the border is Clun. You can see this later, but maybe you can kind of just see the purple line there is the border, right, is the English-Welsh border. And there's this strange little bubble of country, which is England, but basically it's in Wales. It's, when we were having one of our numerous fights over the past 2,000 years, it was decided that's where it was going to go. So you can see Kerry in that sort of top corner there, and then you've got Clun sort of just literally over the border. And these two breeds in the 1800s evolved. One went down the Welsh side and one went down the English side, and they were both white-faced sheep. They were white-faced sheep, hornless white-faced sheep. The Clun remained a white-faced sheep till well into the 1800s. And so it wasn't until maybe 1880s, 1890s that all of a sudden the Clun went from being a bit like a Kerry to they introduced some genetics from the Radnor and from the Shropshire, which took the face to a whole different colour. You're aware of Cluns probably. I got a picture here, maybe somewhere. So, there's your Clun. So that's when there was this sort of clear differentiation. And in the heyday of the Clun was the heyday of the Kerrys in the 50s, before the advent of the mule. My timeline kind of fits in with that timeline. And because they were very close together, they were kind of inextricably linked. even though they were two separate breeds. They both had their day in the sun at the same time. And the Clun did sort of eclipse the Kerry to a significant degree. In that little area that I showed you, they used to produce 85,000 breeding ewes, which were sold just down at the head of the valley, from the Clun back into the real world. There was a railway station next to the sale yard, and they had a 4-day sale where they would sell around 85,000 sheep. The other side of the valley, the other side of the hill, going down the Kerry side, there wasn't, and therefore they remained more of a local breed, which were kind of the local farmers sort of used. Whereas the Clun went, stellar. I mean, they were everywhere. You could chuck them on a train. They could be in the north of England, south of England, and wherever. And so the Kerry really never sort of competed fully with the Clun. One of the things, and the guys and I were talking about this, one of the things that the Kerry was noted for, one of the problems that people associated with it was dropping teeth. I'm getting nodding heads there. is if you put them into a commercial situation, maybe that, in winter you're putting them onto root crops, onto fodder beet, onto turnips and things like that, which is hard going on sheep. A lot of people that were producing prime lambs steered towards the Clun because the thinking was that the Clun had got a harder mouth, that they're more durable. And that was one of the issues with the Kerry that really kind of, it was always there in the background, and why it didn't really compete. And the logistics, distribution side of it as well. And so they both, I went on doing my merry way, doing my farming, and there was the decline of both breeds. That area there is a wonderful sheep. If you ever get the chance to go into that area, it's the most beautiful upland area. As I was saying, the terrain is wild, the sheep are wild, and the people are wild that live up there. But they're wonderful. It's a sort of a hinterland between England and Wales. There's a dialect they speak up there, which is neither English nor Welsh. And I spent a lot of time up there at one time, so I'm kind of, I'm trilingual or bilingual. So I can translate. But if you get a chance to go and to visit that area to see where your sheep basically came from, I would heartily recommend it. So yeah, they kind of declined, the mule kicked in. Everybody was keeping mules, and I mean, really the Clun's sort of demise was even more spectacular when 85,000 sheep in 4 days, and they dropped to a couple of thousand were being sold. So bringing it up to speed now, I mean, McCartney's are the auctioneers McCartney's are the auctioneers in the UK that conduct the breed sales for both the Clun and the Kerry at Ludlow Market, which is very close to where we farmed and where you guys live. And the Kerry was kind of going down even more. It was on the Rare Breed Survival Trust list, and it came off. It's off now, isn't it?
Yeah, they are now. When we started, they were on the rare breed list, so there wasn't many at all.
So they're surviving. And then what I find quite it's interesting, is the resurgence that's happened with the interest over here. And not just over here, but also in the UK too. I mean, I hate to say this, but who's looking for the next Swiss Valley Blacknose? In financial terms, I'm not talking about in sheep beauty terms, but if the big money is in the Swiss Valley Blacknose, and I'm glad it is, and I'm glad people are looking for the next Swiss Valley Blacknose, because that will mean the Kerry is really going to come into its own again. And I think it's not something to be kind of sniffed at. I think it's something to embrace and to say, look, you want something even funkier, try us, if you look at the sale back on the 6th of September, was it the 6th, the sale? Saturday, the 6th of September, the sale there, the Woodhouse, Owens, the Woodhouse, because they cleaned up at the Royal Welsh Show this year. Yes. Allegedly. Yes. Yeah, well, you can blank your face out, put one of those things. But no, they've got some storming sheep, and at the sale this year, they sold the top price sheep was $7,000, and then the second price shearling was $5,000. So, it just shows, and the Cluns aren't quite doing as well. They're kind of, their average, I think the Kerry average was about 1,200 back in pounds now. On the day, the Kerry average for shearling rams was about 1,200, and at the Clun sale, which is held around about the same time, I think it was about 5 or something like that. So the Kerry is kind of pushing ahead now. So it's a tortoise and hare, right? And the Kerry's coming good at the end. So yeah, I mean, I'm just chuffed to bits, as we say, to see the breed over here, and I wish everybody well with it. And you know, please get out there and let people know. I mean, I'll do what little bit I can to promote the breed. And I know for certain my old man's looking down now, and he's probably got a wry smile on his face. So that's my story, really. I mean, if you've got, now then, just a second. I want to talk about colour in the face of the Kerrys. Now then, if you look at them there, have you got the other one of the right? So if you look at those there, right? Now then, that's the Kerry sale 1941. Now I was scrabbling around on the interweb last night, and you probably can't see it, but I can hold this up. So this is 1968, right? You're kind of getting there, okay? There's a bit of difference. So 41, 68.
And this is from crossing with the Clun Forest?
No. This is just purely development within. I'll come to what the cross with now is in a minute. Oh, yes. So this is purely development within the breed. The breed is developing the breed. As you can see, they probably aren't as big. Those actually look almost like a bigger bodied sheep in a way. And the colour's coming. The nose is defined and you've got the black mark on the legs. But so my query is this. What happened between 68 and the Kerrys that you have today? Now then, I think, and I'm not alone, I think I've got some other advocates over there, that this is how it was achieved. So this is a Beulah speckled sheep, Beulah speckled ewe. Now, Beulah is a small village. It's about 40 miles away from Kerry. The Beulah is a highly popular speckled-faced sheep. In Wales, there are several speckled-faced sheep with degrees of speckled. And the Beulah is one of the darkest coloured of them. And it actually is a very popular ewe because it's the basis of the Welsh mule. So the Welsh mule is basically a Beulah mum with a blue-faced Leicester dad, and that then produces these wonderful crossbred ewes which people use on the lowlands to put to a Charolais or a Suffolk or a Texel for prime lamb production. You get the best of both worlds with the blue face. And the reason for the colour, the reason that the Beulah people want the colour is because when you go to these mule ewe sales, which are huge, I mean, you can imagine they are the main sort of engine room of still the engine room of industry. The crossbreds with the darkest colour face are the ones that make the most money. So the mule ewes that are very dark in face are the ones that will make maybe £5 or maybe £10 a head more than the ones that aren't. Now you can't get that from the blue face, from the dad, because the blue faces are sort of blue faced and they're no markings and whatever. But you can get it from the mum, and so that's why they were doing that, because they were looking to get the ewes as dark as they can, so when they put the blue-faced Leicester on it, the resultant female lambs from that cross, which they sell in their droves, are worth more money if they've got a darker. Why? You can't eat the face, can you? But it's a trend, a dark-faced mule ewe, and that applies whether you're buying Scottish mules in Scotland, which are a Scottish blackface and blue-faced Leicester cross, or in the north of England, the North of England mule, which is very popular, which is a Swaledale crossed with a blue face, or the Welsh mule, which is one of these with a blue face. Those darker faced lambs always make more money. So I think that I feel vindicated now. It's great because I got top men agreeing with me. So anyway, I mean, I've rambled on enough, but if anybody's got any questions or anything, I can easily take them. Whether I can provide an answer, God knows.
So you said embryos came in
Yep.
2000
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Semen had been available since what? 2015, something like that. 2006. So that was easier. The reason we have embryos now is because the USDA published the small ruminant rule. Now, the small ruminant rule is actually what affords the UK and other countries in Northern Europe that had BSE long forgotten now and gone, but the small ruminant rule published by USDA afforded access once more to the US lamb, for UK lamb to be exported to the US. In the rule is also embryos. So embryos were included in the same rule that allowed access for lamb from the UK, and probably Ireland are the only two countries that will take advantage of it. But it was in that rule that embryos were deemed acceptable again. So that's what changed.
Do you feel like that will get cut off at any time? Is that a risk?
No. There's been quite a bit of kickback. There's been kickback within the American lamb industry in relation to the threat from UK lamb exports, but given the quantities that have come over so far, I won't go into it, but it's been fairly modest because Australia dominate the lamb market here and New Zealand, and the prices in the Southern Hemisphere are half, for lambs, are half what they are in the UK. So it doesn't rocket science that an exporter from the UK is competing against an exporter from Australia who can put lamb into the market here at half the price. So that kind of shot the UK's fox to an extent, because the price differential between Australia and New Zealand between Australia and the UK and New Zealand and the UK is too much for US importers to work with at the moment. It might change, but that's the situation currently. There you go.
Any other questions?
I'm done.
That's so good.
Well, thank you, and good luck, everybody. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, so we've got about 30 acres there. We live about 20 minutes from there. We run about 45 pedigree Kerry Hill ewes. We also got a small flock of Devon Closewells. They're just plain white face. They're quite rare breed sheep, but they're not as stylish as these guys, though.
Much quieter.
Much quieter, much more docile. But the main ones obviously are the Kerrys. So we have about the 45 ewes, and then depends what we get lamb-wise, really. We tend to keep 4 or 5 ram lambs back, maybe. And we'll run them through to yearling rams. And then, again, depending on what ewe lambs we get, maybe about 20 or so ewe lambs, and we sell a few at the sales as well, don't we? So,
privately on Facebook and things helps with that.
yeah, with the sales and a few private as well. We've cut them down a bit now. We tend to do 3 to 4 of the main shows, just because with work commitments and everything.
Yeah.
The shows are a lot of work. We guess all the trimming and stuff like that, and keep them clean and tidy. So we do 3 to 4 shows a year. The main kind of agricultural shows with us, which is sort of Rowe Welsh, 3 counties.
We normally go
Burton show.
one in June, a couple in kind of July, August time, don't we, really?
Yeah.
And it depends. They've started doing like a national Kerry show now in the UK, so that moves around every year. So we will try and sort of go to that when we can. It was quite local to us this year.
Yeah.
It was in Stafford. I think next year's in Yorkshire, is a few hours away. So we may or may not go to that.
Just
We'll try and
depends.
support it if we
It's
can.
quite a long, some of them like 3-4 hours away, so it's quite a long
But
travel.
that's a good thing to go to.
Yeah. And then there's kind of like 4 sales now, but the main sales for Kerrys in the UK are Ludlow and Carlisle. So they're the main, both in September, aren't they? So they're the main ones we tend to support, just because that's where you kind of like the better sheep kind of go. So Ludlow will be the main one, and then Carlisle after that, and then I think there's one at Skipton and one at Melton Mowbray as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, is it working? It is working. So I've said about the ewe lambs and ram lambs. We tend to probably sell the show ram lambs, don't we?
Normally.
We don't have that much space to keep rams on at home. So we tend to, maybe rams we've shown that have done well, we tend to sell them on them for breeders. And we tend to keep back ones maybe that weren't quite big enough, just younger lambs or something like that, but have got it all there, so we would just run them on to yearling rams and then sell them as yearling rams. And just trying to do the best we can to keep improving them, really. Still trying to breed the perfect Kerry. One day. I think everyone's the same. So that's kind of how it all started.
That's the picture of Jim.
Believe it or me, that is me. So, that's what 20 years of breeding Kerrys does to you, okay? So be warned. You start off with hair and then it gradually goes. So I first started with a few bottle lambs. Like, I think these are guys reared at the bottle, weren't they? Did you say, Tracy? Yeah. So that was when we lived in Kingston. We just had about 5 acres and we had horses and things like that. And I got quite into my sheep. So I got a few Suffolk crosses and Ryland crosses and just reared them as bottle lambs. And then my parents bought a barn, as a barn at the time, which was Downwood Farm. and we converted it, and that's where we live now with like 20 acres. And our neighbours then, the Owens of the Woodhouse. So as a little boy, when I couldn't drive, I used to cycle around my bike, and now I look back and think it was really weird. I used to cycle around and just look at sheep and fields and just stop at the gate and just look at them. And then it was actually John Owens, who is for the Woodhouse, Ellie and Hannah's father. His father, Ivor Owens, who I'm guessing we're probably about his 80s then, would stop by in his car and be like, "Oh, are you Jim from Downwood?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm Jim from Downwood. I just like the sheep." And he used to say, "Oh, if you want to go and have a look, just go in the field and rattle a bucket and they'll come up." And then that's when I first saw Kerrys. And he had Cluns as well, actually. But it was the Kerrys that I kind of really... And it just went from there, and then off I went on my bike again. And then this time John Owens came up and he was like, "Oh, you live down the road, don't you?" And said, "Do you want a job at weekends?" When I was sort of about 14. I was like, "Oh, yeah. So I started working for them on weekends. So then I was a lot more involved with Kerrys, and that kind of sparked up my passion for Kerrys, really. So I started doing that. And then, sort of 2000, got my first ones. I went to the Kerry sale in Kerry with the Owenses, actually. And for some reason, I don't know why, I just wanted ewe lambs. Ewe lambs. I only want ewe lambs. And Philip Owens kept saying, "Jim, get yearling ewes. You can breed for them. Next year you can have lambs." But I don't know why. And still these days, people do it now. They just buy ewe lambs, which I don't know why we want to buy ewe lambs when you can breed from a yearling ewe straight away and 5 months later have lambs. But I think we just like to get them younger. I don't know. So I went to the sale at Kerry, which was a lovely old sale, and bought 2 ewe lambs there. Then I think for birthday presents, I got a couple more. And then John Owens and Derek Rollins used to come over to ours and guide me a bit. And, "Oh, yeah, you should start showing them now." So started showing them probably about 2000, 2003, maybe. Yeah. And then obviously went to my first sale, which was in 2003. I think we've got a slide on there. So that's the actual catalogue of the first ones. So that was back in, I think it's 2000, that one, isn't it? Yeah, 2000 that was. And that's my first 2 ewe lambs I actually bought down there. Can you see them on there? Yeah, so that's my first 2 I ever bought with my pocket money that I saved up. And then back in 2003, this was one of the first ram lambs we bred. It was actually quite funny because we showed a different ram lamb. So we took the 2 ram lambs to the sale, and the other one was much bigger, but he had a tiny bit of grey wool in his tail. And the judge at the time was being very strict on grey wool. So mad panic. I was like, "Oh God, I can't show him. He's done really well at the shows. I don't want to show him at the sale in case she puts him down the line." So Derek Rollins was like, "Oh, I think you should show this other one, Jim," who'd never been on a halter, never done anything at all. And we called him Downwood Silver because he actually had a little, on his eye patch, he had a tiny sort of, 20p, 50p coin size silver patch, like birthmark. So we called him Downwood Silver. I took him in the class, and luckily she said, "Oh, don't worry with halters, we'll show them loose." So we let him off loose. Unbelievably, he won the class. So that's the first time I'd ever sort of really been to a sale. He won the class. And then as I went out of the ring, they said, "Oh, you've got to go to the male championship now." So I turned around, was completely in my own little world, thinking, "Oh, what am I doing here?" And I turned around, and this lady was there with this big trophy and said, "You've won champion male." So the first sheep we ever sold, we went to the sale, he was champion male of the whole sale, which was amazing. And he was only a lamb as well, so he was only about 5 or 6 months old. He beat all the rams, and so I was kind of thrown straight at the deep end and was very lucky and did quite well. So so that kind of launched us really into the Kerry world. And then from there, obviously we got onto social media then. I don't know if that little video will play or not. So this is one of our little videos of, that was actually back in Beast of the East. I guess you guys go back in Beast of the East. We were right in the middle of lambing, wasn't it?
This was one of the videos I saw too.
Yeah.
So about 2018. We were in the middle of lambing. Of course, nothing could go outside because we had so much snow. So we were panicking. We're like, "Oh, what do you do with these lambs? We can't put them anywhere. They're all coming out. We had nowhere to put them." So for some reason, I don't know if I've never used it before, we've got this old fold yard. And every day when I fed them, the ewes would eat and these lambs would go round and round in the snow. And I think that's when I kind of realised the power of social media, because I just thought, "Oh, that's a sweet little video." And I posted it on social media and it kind of rocketed it. So I think Facebook, we've now got 27,000 followers, which just seems crazy to me. Instagram now has taken off with Villanelle. I think they're nearly, 19,500 followers nearly on there, which is crazy. So yeah, it just kind of helps promote the breed really, and hopefully makes everyone smile and laugh along the way. I tried to do a few funny little posts with a few little voiceovers and stuff like that. I think I did one with Villa now with Kath and Kim, which I didn't realise was so big in Australia and New Zealand. And I can't remember what it was now, but it was from a TV programme over there called Kath and Kim, and obviously that was very big in New Zealand. So that launched us on social media in New Zealand. Yeah, it just helps out promote our breed really and advertise our flock. And I think that's kind of how you guys got to know about them really, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, hashtags do, yeah, all about hashtags, but yeah. So yeah, obviously we've been showing for sort of 20 years, so I can't go through all of it because there's been lots of ups and downs through the years. 1 minute you're at the top, next minute down the bottom, it's showing for you. So, so these are just probably some of our main ones. Judging, I probably started judging when I was quite young to judge. I think I was about 20 when they threw me straight in at judging because I was young and keen, and so I started judging sort of about 20. But obviously the pinnacle probably was this year. I judged the Rowe, which is probably one of the biggest agricultural shows in Europe and would be the biggest show in the UK for Kerry Hill sheep. So yeah, it was an absolute privilege to be asked to judge that. As you can see there, that's the yearling U class there. I think there was 29 entries in there, so it was a very big class. Quite daunting, but enjoyed every minute of it. And also I've been a council member again, the Kerry Hill Council again when I was quite young. I was probably about 20 when they asked me to be on the Kerry Hill Council. And I also became a breed inspector. Again, I was probably about 21, 22.
Tell us about that process.
So the inspecting, so we have the society sales, and the job of the inspectors are the council select, say, 3-4 members, and your job is to inspect every sheep that comes to that sale to make sure it is up to standard, meets the breed standards and everything. Anything faults, if it's not suitable, it's rejected from the sale. So as you can imagine, it's not a particularly nice task when you're 21 and you've only been breeding for a bit and you're telling breeders that they're sheep. But it helps the breed, moves the breed forward, obviously, and guides people really what is good, bad, and what you shouldn't be breeding from. Oh, question.
What percentage do you have to kind of get?
It varies a lot. We have noticed since we've been doing it, it's a lot better. People are more aware now of what will be accepted, what won't be accepted. I don't know where it would be now.
Yeah, good question. There's 200 sheep at the sale roughly, isn't there?
Yeah, 200 to 300. It sort of varies a bit, doesn't it?
5%?
Yeah, I would have thought so. It's got a lot better, and you can see a lot less black wool and bad teeth and things like that. So it's kind of just a way of guiding people. And there's a lot of new members that go there, so it's quite good for them to see. A lot of people don't know what they should be looking for, so it's a good way to sort of guide them, really.
Yeah, and you used to do like a new flock inspection as well, didn't you? So when new breeders came along and they started their flocks,
councilmen would go out.
See them and look at their sheep and just give them some advice and stuff. So we used to do that a little bit, didn't we?
Yeah. So the inspectors, we kind of do that. They have now, obviously, just as breeders, it's not the nicest things for you to do, and it can sometimes cause a bit of conflict if you're there selling sheep, you're an inspector. So now what we do, the society now pays an outsider, so he's not involved with the society, he's not a member, so he inspects all the sheep now, and then there's no conflict between breeders and stuff like that, so it's an outsider now, so that started about 3 years ago, I think. Yeah. So that's good now. So it's an outsider and we pay them, and it's done like that now, so that's quite good. Show sale-wise, we did break the breed record back in 2019 with Victor, which is the ram down here at the bottom. He broke the record, which is in guineas, so that's about £4,500. So we broke the breed record back in 2019 selling him, which was, that was pretty good, although it has been broken now, sadly. we held it for about 2 years, but I think it's been broken now. So that was quite nice. When you're in the ring, that was amazing. You know this money is going up in the back of your head. You're like, oh my God, I'm like £200 off breaking the record. I'm like £50 off breaking the record. And you're trying to focus on this sheep and sell it, and in your head, I'm like, I've broken the record. So that was a very good moment. Good old Victor.
2019, it was quite a good show.
I will add now, because I'm a bit of a softie, Victor, I've bought him back, so he now retired back at home. So he's back with us now. We sold him, so I think he didn't go far from us actually. We sold him to the local breeder about 10 minutes from us. And I said to him, he owes me nothing. If I can afford to buy him back, I'd like to buy him back. So he phoned me up one day and he said, Victor's ready to come home. So he's back with us now, retired, because he owes us nothing. So yeah, if you go on to also we've done the semen collection for you guys. So that was another big moment for us. Very difficult to do, pass all the tests and everything. We did try 2 rams. Sadly, one was a bit too highly strung for it, and just his semen quality was fine, but it just wasn't good enough standard to freeze. He passed all the tests and stuff, but so that's another nice. And I think this gentleman here is side by one of our rams, so that's quite cool. I'm not sure what else the other. So these are just some of the pictures of the sheep that have done well for us. So again, this on the top left here, this is Victor, the ram that broke the record. I'd always said one day he'd be a champion, and Mum and Tom were like, yeah, Jim, whatever. I was like, no, one day. He was just very big, very leggy. I didn't want to push him because I could tell he was going to be a big sheep, and obviously if you push him too hard, the teeth can go, the joints can go. So we showed him as a yearling ram. He did quite well. He was kind of 3rds and 4ths. And at the end of the season, Mum and Tom were like, where's your sash, Jim? He's not won his sash. I was like, one day. And then, blow me, we brought him out at the Royal Three Counties show, which is the first ever national Kerry Hill show. And he went and took male champion, breed champion, won the whole Kerry section. He then went on to, so we have you then go into an interbreed championship where you go against all the other breeds, all the champions from the other breeds. So he did an upland section. So he then went on to win champion upland and this show's probably got about 3,000 sheep. And you then go into the terminal size. So we get up against the Suffolks, the Texels, all these double-muscled sheep. And he went and got reserve supreme interbreed of the whole show. The only one sheep that beat him was a Suffolk ewe. So that was pretty amazing. And then that show is actually a 2-day show. So on the Sunday, it's classed as a rare breed day, and it's different judges. So because Victor had done so well on the first day, I didn't want to spoil it. Obviously, different day, different judge. Having done all that, I didn't want to run the risk of showing him again on Sunday, and he didn't do it again, if you see what I mean. I didn't want to spoil the moment. So we thought, right, Sunday, we'll leave him in the pen. He's done what he's done. Let's leave him end on a high. And blow me, his daughter, who was Villanelle below him, who was the famous Villanelle, we showed her, and she went on, did better. She then won Kerry champion, and she went supreme interbreed of the whole. So our little flock of, 7 was it? It was actually these guys, all this lot in this. That was our 2019 show team. And out of that little flock there, we basically practically won the whole of the 3 county show, which was amazing, with 2 different sheep. So everyone came up and I don't think you realise what you've done. You've won the whole show, not with 1 sheep. You've done it for 2 sheep from the same pen. So that was amazing, yeah. And it's quite nice that they're all related as well, because obviously Victor is down here, and these 2, that's his sister Claude, that's his sister Villanelle. So they're all kind of related. So it's quite a nice little family team. Villanelle and Vera, who was Tom's show you. That's Tom as well. It was like rivalry all season. 1 minute she'd beat me, then I'd beat her. So they've actually retired now, those 2 from breeding. They had lambs last year, but they've retired now. So they've now gone over to Wales. My aunt's got a farm over in Wales. So again, because I'm a bit of a softie, if they owe me nothing, because they've been show sheep and done as well, we retire them and they just go off to my aunt's farm in Wales. So she's now living in a 120-acre farm in Wales with woods and springs and rivers and I should have put some pictures. So she'll stay there till the days are done. And obviously we don't have much room to keep them all there, but I'm lucky that my aunt does have a lot of room. So she always says, any of them you want to keep them, they can come and retire with me. So she's living a life up in Wales now. And then, so the picture down the bottom with me and Tom in it, that's Victor when he broke the breed record and made the 4,500. That was then. And then the top, I can't quite see now, the top right, so this is Moses, Downwood Moses. So he's the sire of this ram down here. And that's him as a lamb, actually. The ewes in the middle with the 3 lambs. Moses is the one on the far right. So you could see he kind of stood out as a lamb, that he'd got a bit of attitude about him. And then down in the bottom bottom right, we've actually done this 2 or 3 times now, which I'm quite proud of. That is what we class as a group of 3. So when we're showing, we do a group of 3, and it has to be a male and 2 females. It can be lambs or age sheep. Yeah. And we've actually gone on now twice or 3 times, I can't remember now, and actually won Supreme Interbreed of the shows. So we've beaten every other breed of sheep at the show, Suffolk, Texels, and won Supreme Interbreed Group of 3, which is quite, I'm quite proud of that, actually. Obviously, when you go against all these Texels and Suffolks, they're big Charolais, big double-muscled sheep, aren't they? So with a Kerry, and to get Kerrys to match and look similar is quite tricky. And we had really nice comments from the judge, didn't they? It's hard to tell. You go in these classes, and sometimes the judges let you know they're interested. These judges are so cool and calm. We just thought, oh no, they're not even looking at our Kerrys. And we won it, and they both came up and said, before you even stood them up, as soon as you walked in the ring, we knew you were the champions. So that was really nice that they'd. So to do it twice, we did it at the national show this year, didn't we? With they're not on there, but they were the 3 at the front at the start. Those 3 were another group of 3 we had, and they've done it as well, so that's quite good. So they're some of the main sort of proudest moments, probably, I'd say. Here's Moses again. This is Moses here, actually, on the right as well. So going forward now, you guys want to know about what we look for, finer details. As I said to Tracy before, everyone likes different things. We all look for different things in the sheep. I think you just have to go for what you like. They're your sheep at the end of the day. You are the one that looks after them. You look at them 24/7. We all like different things. So the main things we would look for, obviously, when selecting sheep, is confirmation is key. To us, it's more important than markings or anything like that. You have to have a correct sheep from the start. All the markings and stuff you can tweak. Once you've got your sheep, you can tweak the other things, if you see what I mean. So confirmation, your markings, and then your grey and black wool, which will kind of go into all these things a little bit more. And then we do like our sheep to be a bit sassy and a bit of presence about them. I think we're kind of quite well known for it. We like a bit of presence and style, but again, it's down the list, but it does make a difference, if you know what I mean. We'll go into those points a little bit more. So I'm not sure how clear they'll come up. So you tend to start from the front of the sheep and the work way back. Teeth. So I don't know how much you guys know about teeth and joints and good mouths, bad mouths, and things like that. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if it's better to stand up there or not. Whether you can see. Can you see the picture down here or not? If I point on here.
Yeah, we can see.
So teeth. So basically, obviously, you all know sheep only have bottom teeth. So you have a pad at the top here. So you see the teeth should be on the pad. They shouldn't come off the pad, or they shouldn't be too far behind the pad. So that's quite an important thing. I did show Tracy on your sheet yesterday, didn't we? That is key. You want to try and... You're starting out fresh. Things like this you need to be on. And Kerrys do have issues with mouths. They're not great. It's just things to be aware of and just keep an eye on it. And I think really to be kind of pretty ruthless with it. You've got an opportunity now to start a new flock over here, and I think you need to kind of be, if you can, I know you haven't got many genetics and stuff, but I think it's just a thing to be aware of and keep an eye on, isn't it? So if they're coming off the pad, like I explained to Tracy, if you run your fingers down, it should just be smooth. You shouldn't snag, your fingers shouldn't snag on the teeth, you shouldn't really feel the teeth. Again, they shouldn't sort of be too far behind the pad, they should just kind of meet it flush. So does that kind of explain it? Does that kind of understand that? Yeah. And top line, I couldn't find any pictures anywhere to explain top line to you. Basically, top line is the sheep's back. So you want a nice, level, straight, ideally not dipped behind the shoulders. They have a tendency to dip behind the shoulder. You can also get sort of ridge back or cold back, some people call it, where the spine is more up. So it's more like this. And sometimes they call it like raw backed, because no matter how much flesh you get on that sheep, if it's raw backed, you will always feel the spine. So that's another thing. If the spine so top line is quite important, isn't it? You don't want to. They can dip behind the shoulder blades. You'll get like a dip behind the shoulder blade somewhere, and obviously you want your shoulders to be nice and square. So when you handle the shoulder, it feels flat. It doesn't feel like it should be nice, square, flat shoulder. We can explain later when we're handling the sheep a bit. Legs. What is he on the sun on there? Yeah. So the legs should be nice and square. So the picture on the left, it should be nice and square, straight, not bowed legs. Sometimes you can probably see that more when they're walking, like that they'll twist out of the hocks. So that sort of bow legs, you want to keep the legs nice and square. And the same cow hocked, they kind of look weak behind, the hocks turn inwards, and the legs kind of do more of a bend like that. But you can see it clearly when they walk. You'll see what I mean when you walk. Some of the hocks will twist out and that sort of, but so you want them to walk nice and square and straight. And the same on the front side, yeah, you want them nice and square, nice bit of width between the front, nice straight front, knock-kneed, you don't want the feet turning in. So it's quite hard to see on grass really, but if you get them on concrete, very often if you've got concrete yards, you can walk them and you can check they're nice and straight. Pastons are quite important. Again, they're getting better, but it's a thing we've had to watch with Kerrys.
It's a very particular thing, isn't it?
Yeah, teeth and pastons, I would say, are a bit of a fault with Kerrys.
You were saying they were longer?
Yeah, from what we've seen here, yours are very good. They're very upright. I didn't think this picture actually explains it that well, but so the paston, do you all know what the paston is on the sheep? Yeah? So yeah, you don't really want them, you want to keep them short and upright. With us, sometimes I do think it's because sheep, we push them a lot for showing, to get them to growth and the weight and stuff. You can push them too hard and that doesn't help. But yeah, you want to keep the pastons short and...
Yeah, I mean, saying about like the inspecting and sales, like teeth and pastons and blackpool, probably.
That's probably why most of them
the three most common reasons why they wouldn't be accepted to sale.
Yeah, generally that's most, yeah.
What does pushing, you said, with the feed do to the teeth?
So it's the proteins, and obviously because you want to get the condition, you
It's like pushing, it means like feeding them up.
feed you with your feed. So you want them to grow, you want them to be fit, you want them to get the most potential out of them, don't you? So sometimes people would house them too much, so they feed them high protein food. They would house them too much, and then so when they cut their teeth, as I said to Tracy yesterday, so they have the lamb teeth, and then when they use the baby teeth and they get the yearling teeth, if they're housed a lot there and on a lot of high protein food, not grazing, sometimes the yearling teeth will come up and they'll be off the pad, and kind of once that's happened, but feeding with high protein food and not being out grazing and pushing the teeth back can cause that. So that's kind of a bit of a thing when you're showing, you have to watch to keep them as much as possible. And yeah, it's just a thing I think feeding the protein does cause quite a bit of that, to be honest, isn't
They
it?
just put on weight quite quickly. It can just,
Yeah, if people panic because they've got a show coming up and the sheep doesn't handle, so they suddenly pile a load of food into it, and if that sheep's growing, you suddenly put a lot of weight on those joints while the sheep is still growing, and then the joints go down. And sometimes, particularly rams, they go a bit leggy and they'll grow and they'll come back, yeah.
And we try with the show sheep, we tend to feed them sort of more little and often for a long period.
Yeah, that's what we just learned as time's gone on. I was guilty of, as you're always learning, aren't you? So I think, oh God, I've got a show in like 6 weeks. The sheep isn't going to alter condition that much in 6 weeks. I've learned that now. So you're best to just keep them ticking over slowly, regularly, small amounts, often. And I've learned from that.
We do graze them as much as possible. We don't really have that many buildings and things,
Yeah.
do we? So our sheep are generally outside, kind of roughing it a bit.
Yeah, they're mainly in, obviously, when we've washed them.
Yeah.
One, to keep them clean, and when you've washed them like that, part of it is the wool, and you want the wool to come back. So when they've been washed like that and you've taken the lanolin out, you don't want them to get wet again, because you want them to be dry when you trim them, and you want the lanolin to come back. So obviously you've opened the fleece up now. If it rains on them now, you're going to just wash everything out again. So after they've been washed, they tend to stay in a bit more then. So then you're always in the back of your mind, oh, hang on a minute, they're in now, they're being fed quite a lot of food. So we try to, if the weather's nice, we put them outside as long as we can. But also I don't want them being able to pick up in the hedges and lie in the dirt and rub on the hedges.
British summers on always.
But it is quite funny. Back when I lived at home when I was younger, I'd be at college or something like that. I'd come home and let the sheep out quickly. And it's like they knew. It was hilarious. We'd sat down having tea, and my mum would be like, Jim, just sit down, eat your tea, stop worrying about the sheep. I'm like, but they can't get rain. It's going to rain. It's going to rain. And when I sat there, these sheep had been in for like, I don't know, well, they'd been in all day, wouldn't they? I let them out for a few hours. And it's like they knew, these show sheep knew, we're show sheep, we shouldn't get wet. And I'd be eating my tea, and I'm like, it's raining, I've got to go. And I'd drop my tea, run outside, and the sheep would just run. They were like, we can't get wet, we're show sheep, we can't get, and you'd open the door, and they'd just come running straight in the shed. It was so funny. they just knew, didn't they? They do like a lap of the field, and they were looking at clouds like, oh God, we shouldn't be out here, it's going to rain. So they did get pampered a bit.
Inside all the time.
Pardon?
Basically, UK sheep are constantly inside because all
No.
it seems to do is rain.
Yeah, only when they come out to a show. Apart from that, they rough it and they're outside. It's only when it's just before a show because you don't want to spoil the wool really, and you don't want to get muddy. So yeah, so we kind of that's kind of all that. Any questions? Again, we can all go through, and we can show you on these sheep maybe if there's any questions you want to know about shoulder, top line. It's probably easier to point out on a sheep.
Okay with that?
Yeah.
What's locomotion?
So locomotion is kind of like the movement. So you kind of want them to move sort of smoothly, and it kind of all kind of goes together really.
Yeah. Smoothly, freely.
Yeah.
Back legs following the front legs.
And it's just how they all move, and again, like the hocks and stuff like that, you just want them to move straight. No, like plaiting. So plaiting is when they kind of walk and their legs kind of do this when they're walking. So you just want them to move sort of. I haven't really got any. I should probably got one of Dottie actually. Dottie's got quite a good video of her walk, and I did do a video a while ago, and that's quite a good video of you walking straight towards us. And she's quite good. She's nice and wide, and she walks very straight. So that's quite a good one to see locomotion because she walks very straightly. So yeah, that's basically locomotion. You just want them to move nice and freely. And okay. So we thought we'd refine a bit for your tups and ewes really. So what you should look for. So when selecting rams, obviously they have quite a big input in your flock because a ram can go with like 50 ewes. So when selecting your rams, really you want to be a little bit stricter with your ram lambs, what you want to breed from, what's going to make the grade, because that ram can go with 50 ewes and have a big influence on your flock because he's going to sire like 50% of your flock. So the rams, you want to be really, rams had a half-life, they have to be. That's why I say we have what, 60 lambs a year, say it's split 50-50, there will only be, it again varies, but maybe 4 or 5 ram lambs that we will keep back. And even then, they might not all make the final cut. We'll keep them back and run them on, but even out of those 4 or 5, not all of them might make the final grade to be a breeding ram. Whereas the ewe lambs, obviously, we're probably going to keep 20, 25 back, so you can see how much stricter we are on rams for breeding than females. And also, there's only really demand for a lot of the top rams. So to produce a ram to show standard costs a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort goes to it. And if you're going to produce that ram to that standard and he's not going to meet the grade, financially it's just not worth doing it. If he's only going to make £200 or £300, it's really not worth doing it to put your time and effort and money into producing him to sort of that standard. So you have to be pretty ruthless with the rams.
What age do you cut them? At what age? How old are they?
So some you can kind of almost tell from day one, the moment they're born. If it's got too much black wool, too heavily marked, we will put a rubber ring on them and they will be weathered the moment they're born. We're like, nope, he's no good straight away. He's badly marked or something, you can just tell straight away. And then we kind of do cuts throughout the year, really. And then again, when they kind of, 12 weeks or so maybe, we kind of just watch them all grow and mature. And there's some that they might go a bit spotty or joints, pasterns, teeth, they might not be how we like them. So then they will go off the fat market, and then we kind of wean them all, and then we just gradually cut through them. And you will always get people say you can't, but you can. You can tell the moment that she was born. They just have something about them. You can see it. As long as they grow properly and stay correct, you can kind of tell from the moment they're born. They get up and they've just got this attitude and they've got it all there. Obviously, there's lots of things that go wrong, like I said, teeth, joint, pasterns. As long as that stays all right. So you kind of generally, from the moment they're born, you have your little favourites that you're kind of watching. But like we cut kind of throughout the life, really, don't we? Up to the moment we almost sell them, really.
Like a weaning, we'll have to get them
Yeah.
and have a look at them, and then maybe again when you're taking show sheep out, and then obviously registrations are due up. Whenever it is, September time.
I'm always late, so I'm not a good one to ask.
There becomes a point
I'm always
where
getting told off by the
you have to
secretary. Jim, your registrations need to be in.
So
Yeah.
at the point, obviously, when you pay to register them, you have to kind of decide, are we going to register it or not?
Yeah, it's kind of constant, and then
Yeah.
you kind of do that as lambs, and you don't have to register them as lamb, you can register them as yearlings. So again, when they're older, and also they don't change their teeth until sort of the following year, which is probably, I don't know, May, June time. So they can still go wrong then. They're over a year old and the teeth can still go wrong then. So it's always kind of a bit, you're constantly watching them and making sure it's all kind of right. Obviously the ram lambs, we like them to be masculine and we like it when they're born, I like to go, like even looking underneath them, I like to be able to tell that's a ram lamb, that's a ewe lamb by looking at them, if you know what I mean. I like my tups to be quite masculine, big, strong tups. And I just like them to look like a male sheep. If I don't like particularly feminine tups. When they're born, I like them to be, you can just look by looking at them that it's a tup lamb and not a ewe lamb. So they tend to have a bit more bone, a bit more power about them, which we like. They do, some will throw like a horn bud, or scur, I think Tracy said you call them over here. Again, it's another thing to watch. They will throw them. Some are just tiny little scurs that they'll fall off as they get older. With us, again, they will be rejected if you sort of have it the size of your thumb and it's solid, it's not going anywhere. It's a no for us. They're out. They're not a horn breed. They shouldn't have horns, so we don't want to encourage it. So if you've got anything with a particularly strong, you can kind of tell, can't you? Some are very soft. They have little lamb, and the tup lambs, they play and fight, don't they? And they come off, and that's it. If they don't come back. But some, they're there, they're rooted in, and they're not going to go. So with us, they're rejected, and not to encourage it. So we wouldn't encourage that. They'd be culled off with us. Again, we just like our tups to be big, strong, powerful. Like it to look like a tup. Again, people like different. Some don't like them too big. Sometimes like them too big, powerful. We do. We like them to look like a tup and have a lot more bone. So when we say bone, it's like the thickness of the legs. So that's what we class as bones. We like them to have nice, strong bone in the tup. And then testicles, obviously, they match. They're good size, pair, and even, and no abnormalities with those. So that's all the little things you want to kind of watch out for tups. There is the black wall, but we'll come into that a bit because that's a bit of a minefield. Again, females. Those obviously we like them to look feminine. I don't like you to be particularly masculine. I think you should be able to tell again looking at it as a female, and if you know what I mean. Having said that, it's quite nice to have a nice powerful ewe now and again, because a nice powerful ewe or masculine ewe will produce good tups for you, if you see what I mean. So sometimes it's quite nice to have a big strong ewe because they will produce a good tup for you. They're generally lighter in frame. Obviously, you need to have a good udder, just the two teats. Sometimes they'll almost throw like 4 little teats, won't they? So it's just little extra teats. But you want to have a good sound udder and to be milky. They're quite a milky breed of sheep, we find. I don't know if you guys have found the same. So it's just a thing to watch. Things that aren't particularly milky, we do tend to keep an eye, because if you haven't got milky ewe, lambs aren't going to do very well, and they're just never going to thrive. If they've not done well on the ewe, they're just never going to. So we will kind of cull a bit. If they're not very, again, maternal on there as well, isn't it? If they're not very maternal or very milky, we will cull for that as well, because it just causes work. And I think the Kerry's like a hill breed, so they should be, lambs should hit the ground running and just go, and the mothers should look after them. And we tend to find we don't generally have to interfere too much, do we?
They're generally really good ones.
Yeah, we've got a lambing camera, so we can watch them while lambing. We try not to interfere if we can help it. Sometimes we'll find the rams, you have some lambing problems, and it's almost related to the ram. Like you're having tup lambs that are born with 2 bigger, broader heads, and you're pulling them all. So if we have that, we generally get rid of that ram, because you don't really want to have to be helping lambs. It's not a good thing to be having to interfere all the time. They should be able, they're a hill breed. They should be able to kind of do it themselves. I remember a few years ago, we kept we have to put all these lambs all the time, and it was every single one before you even pulled it, you could go, I bet you it was a tup lamb, and it was just the top of the heads. They were too broad. You just couldn't get them out. And they'd actually, interestingly, did then very often tend to have horn buds. So whether that changes the shape of the head, I'm not sure. But the tup lambs that year tended to have quite a lot of horn buds. So we culled that ram, obviously, because it was a trait he had that we didn't want. So he was culled. And so you want them to be good mothers. They are, I don't know if we find them very good mothers. Do you guys find them very good mothers? Yeah.
I live with mine.
Yeah.
Half an hour away, so they look good on their own.
They get on with it, and you are that's a very good thing. They are very good mothers, Kerry. That's why a lot of people quite easy, don't they?
Do you ever bottom feed any of your lambs for any reason?
I'd be tempted to do what you do, just make them quieter. We will only bottom rear them if we can. Ideally, we try to adopt them just because they do so much better on a ewe. If we can get them on a ewe, we'd rather put them on a ewe. I said to you yesterday, we've got one old show ewe. She was on the slide before with the 2 ewes and lambs. She's been a very good ewe, but she got mastitis very early on and lost half her udder. But she always lambs really early. She always produces show lambs or sale topping lambs. So we keep her. She's very quiet. She lambs very early. she nearly always has twins, but because she lambs early, it's early on in the lambing season, so we will take one of her lambs and we'll do a wet adoption onto another ewe that's had a single maybe. We only really do it with her because she's such a good ewe and she always produces quite nice lambs, but generally we wouldn't do it just because it causes a lot of extra work. And but we'd only really rear them on the bottle if we couldn't adopt them on something else, or they were too weak to go on a ewe or something. But generally we would try and do a wet adoption, or I don't know whether you guys skin them over here as well. Do you ever do that over here?
I've seen
Yeah.
that.
So another thing that works, Kerrys are tricky. Yeah, Kerrys are tricky. They're so suspicious. I think I said to you yesterday, didn't I? So we've got this one, Beatrice, who we do this wet adoption with. And another thing we've learned, you can't just. So do you know what a wet adoption is? So yeah, so we do a wet. The Kerrys, I don't know if other breeds have to do it, but the Kerrys, if you have a ewe lamb and you do the wet adoption, you get the adopted lamb and you soak it in the birth fluids. And then if you leave it go, the Kerry ewes straight away just go, that lamb's just been born, it shouldn't be stood up. They know, it shouldn't be standing, it shouldn't be up, it shouldn't be walking, it shouldn't be doing that. So straight away, they're suspicious. They're like, what's going on? That's my lamb, that lamb's only just been born, that lamb's up and suckling, and they'll almost reject it. So we actually have to tie the legs together just to slow them down a bit and make them think it's a newborn lamb. Then quietly we'll undo the string on the back legs so the lambs kind of get up a little bit and the same speed that their actual own lamb is. And then we find that another way, which you generally, is if a ewe's lost a lamb or something, you kind of skin the lamb, which is not a very nice thing to do. But again, it's better for the ewe to rear a lamb and better for the lamb to be reared on a ewe. So if her lamb has passed away, you can actually skin her dead lamb and then put the skin on another lamb. Kerrys are, again, very suspicious. They're a bit, I'm not sure about this. Particularly if they've already got their own lamb. I'd say if they've had twins, they've lost a twin, I won't attempt to skin. If they've had twins, they've lost a lamb, I won't attempt to skin the one lamb and put it on another lamb just because they are so suspicious. They know if she hasn't got a lamb, she wants a lamb, it'll generally work. But if she's already got another lamb, I personally, with a Kerry, wouldn't attempt to put another lamb on her. I would just leave her be. Go for the easy option. The lambs get up and go. They are very easy, I think. That's one thing I think. And you can have the wildest Kerry ewe and she will lamb and she will not let anything get to that lamb. Our ewes, when they're in lamb, they're climbing the wall. And the moment she lambs, she will knock you over to protect a lamb, which I think is a real good trait for the Kerrys. And a lot of people cross them, don't they? They will use, say if you have ewe lambs, they will put a Kerry ram on them because they're not particularly big lambs and the lambs have so much vigour in them. The moment they're born, they're kind of up and away. And so for first-time lambers, they're very good for that, aren't they? Very good maternal breed. So this is where it gets tricky. Okay. So the markings and black wool. So obviously they have the black and white markings. Markings they're a personal kind of preference. Obviously they should be black and white. Odd spots are accepted, they don't mind. They don't want them spotty all in the white. The odd spot here and there is fine, they allow that. Legs the same. The black knees, black pasterns. I'm not OCD about it, but it's the thing I watch with rams and stuff, our own rams. I don't particularly like them. They do have a bit of specking. I try to avoid it a bit, but if it's a very cracked sheep, that's like a minor fault for me, if you know what I mean. If it's correct everywhere else, I'd let that go. I wouldn't be like, I'm not using that ram because it's got specky legs, if you see what I mean. It's just the finer details, but it's the thing that's in the back of your mind. I try not to encourage it too much, but it's not here or there, if you know what I mean. It's just one of those personal preferences. Some people like it, some people don't. Ears, a bit of a tricky one. Icing on the cake is black ears. Everyone loves black ears. It's a personal preference. They don't have to have black ears, they can have white ears. We've got one now, a ewe lamb, and she'd be our best bodied ewe lamb we've got. A lot of breeders like, I'm not keeping her, she's got white ears. But if you looked at all our ewe lambs, if you chopped off the heads and looked at the ewe lambs, she wins hands down, width, power, body. She's the best body one of the lot. So because of that, overalls or her markings and stuff, to me, she's too valuable to Carl or sell because she brings better traits, if you see what I mean. She's so much stronger in other points. Her markings goes out the window because she's so much better in other points, which I think people need to remember. Some people focus too much on the markings, and other more important traits like bone, power, teeth go out the window. So I think you need to be aware of markings, but don't let them blinker you to other issues the sheep might have, if that makes sense. Again, with the ears, we're quite well known for, we like ours to be very sharp and alert, ears up on the head. Some they class it like 10 to 2, so a bit wider. A lot of people hear me go, oh, it's all about the ears, it's all about the ears, and a lot of people say, oh, downward sheep, ears. We do like them to be sharp. I like the ears to go straight up. I think it's just the icing on the cake and just finishes the whole picture and gives them that extra. And when you're in the show ring, it's the extra, like, yeah, sheep picks his ears and looks a little bit cocky in a bit. It just gives you that edge above the rest, doesn't it? So that's something we look out for. We like them to be like that. I don't like particularly wide ears, but obviously you guys are breeding up and yours will improve with time as you get more, better and better. So blue and specking, this is quite a tricky one to explain. So see around here, around the front of the sheep, they can go quite blue here. That's a bit of a no in Kerry's. You want to try and avoid that. It'll happen with age very often, but some can get it very young, like a year old or so, can't they? Can get it very young. So again, with us, we would probably call that out, because once you kind of get it, it's quite hard to get rid of. If they get it later on in life, it's an age thing, like me going grey around the muzzle. It's kind of what happens, so can't be too cruel. But yeah, if they get it quite young, I probably would maybe not breed so much from them. I'd try to avoid it. It's just like the skin goes a bit blue, and they're kind of prone to throw it sort of at the top of the leg. So that's another thing to watch. Just be aware. It tends to be around the jaw here, doesn't it? Where the hair and the wool meet. They'll kind of go a bit bluey and specky there. And again, on top of the legs, they'll kind of go a bit blue there. So that's another thing to kind of watch out for. Markings is... I said to Tracy,
So would you breed that out by going with a lighter hue? Or how do you correct that?
It doesn't really come with a colour, does it? Some just have it. It's like a gene, I guess. It doesn't seem to come with a paler sheep or a darker sheep. It's just some that have it. So it's just a thing to, as they get old, you'll see if they start going a bit blue here, especially on ram. A ram, I'd keep an eye on it. But the markings, again, it's personal kind of preference. Like, see, on the ram here, his back of his legs are quite black, aren't they, down the back, as the lambs are kind of broken. Mm-hmm. I personally don't mind. Some breeders are like, I only like them all black. They want them all black down the back. Yeah. I quite like a break, like the lambs, but I'm not, again, for me, it's just little tweaks here and there. It's not, if it's a good sheep, I wouldn't worry me at all, if you know what I mean. It's just what you like.
Yeah. On the tops of their heads.
Yeah, so sort of where the poll is, really. Yeah. Us as breeders, I like them quite clean. He's not particularly bad. Some you will get, they will have a whole black band, like on the pole where the horns would be. You can get a whole black band there. Again, with me, as breeders, I don't particularly like it. I will try and keep it clean. And we have some, but they have like nothing at all. And it just cleans the whole head up, if you see what I mean. It just, again, final image, just cleans it all up. That's what we kind of like, isn't it? Some people don't mind it. Some people like them darker. And like I said to Tracy, one thing I will say, which we get a lot of new breeders in the UK, they strive for this big black eye patches, kind of a bit like this. They strive for this. It's quite hard to get it. It's quite hard to get it all right. And people think they want them dark. Don't do it. It's like this ewe lamb here she's quite a good example of a ewe to keep, because people they want them darker and darker and darker, but when you get the markings too dark, you get black wool. Black wool's a fault. You don't want black wool. So a lot of new breeders we try to guide them, but they all have this, I want to carry with like completely all black ears and big black eye patches, and then they go and buy a ram that's the same, and you just go, oh God, you're going to have problems. And they have like very dark legs and these big black eye patches and all black ears. They bought them for sale, they spent a lot of money, they go home, breed them, and then the lamb comes out like a Jacob. And it's like, oh, you've gone too dark. So it's just, you'll learn as you get into them more. I keep saying, I spoke to Tracy yesterday, so we've gone through a couple of these things. We now as breeders, we don't buy in ewes anymore. We over the South have been doing it 20 years now. So we want to keep our flock quite closed, so we don't want to bring in diseases and stuff like that. But we've also noticed, again, because of the markings, just by being very selective, we touch wood, have kind of cut down a lot of the black wool in ours, mainly by keeping our own females. You kind of know what colour those ewes carry, so you'll remember what the sire was, what the dam was, how dark they were, and it just plants in the back of your head. You go, oh, her sire was very dark, her mum was very dark, she's come out quite nice, but her genes are carrying quite dark, so I won't put her with a particularly dark tup, if that makes sense. Whereas if we buy ewes in, we obviously don't know the breeding of them, we don't know the parentage, so we've found with us now, but we can do it, like we said, we've been breeding them 20 years, so we're at the stage now we can keep our own back and we can do that, but obviously you guys are building up, so that's just something we've noticed ourselves in like 20 years, we tend to do that, don't we? But yeah, they're the main kind of issues with black wool. Like you can see here in the top left, that happens. I don't know why. It's just a random spotting gene that just appears. As you can see, that lamb is perfectly clean, but you just end up with a black spot. We had one a few years ago. Same ram, same sire, had a beautiful tup lamb. He was our show ram lamb, won quite a lot of stuff. We took him to the sales. He was top price ram lamb. Did very well for us. I thought, right, I'll do it again this year. Hopefully we'll get a ewe lamb, fingers crossed. Came out just like that. Beautifully clean, pulled it out, and I was like, oh my God, yes, ewe lamb, brilliant. Stood it up, and on the other side, when it was laid down, was a great big splodge like that. And I was like, how has that happened? Completely clean, I swear, no reason. Last year the lamb was perfectly clean. It's just what happens, it's just because of their markings. So yeah, they will, obviously if these were us, we wouldn't keep any of these lambs, just because with us that's false, particularly there's one on the top right. Some of it will grow out, and I guess you guys probably get a bit over here. Some will grow out. Again, with your rams, I'd be strict. Remember that it's there and try to avoid encouraging it. Again, because once you start getting it and breeding it in, some breeders are like, oh, but she's got a bit of black wool in its neck. It will grow out, like there's a lamb on the bottom of the right there. That bit in its neck, chances are, once that lamb is shorn, it probably will come back white wool. But how I look at it as a breeder is that it's there, it's in that lamb's genes, and by breeding from it, you are breeding it into your sheep. Do you see what I mean? So I wouldn't do it. If it's me when they're born, you guys do short tails anyway, don't you? We do hock lengths because it's a hill breed, so with us they have hock lengths. But if it's born like that and I'm aware that it might grow out, I will do a short tail. As a mental note to myself, that lamb was born with a grey neck. I don't want to breed from that, so I will do a short tail. And sometimes you kick yourself. You come to the autumn and you're like, oh my God, that lamb there, look, it's beautiful. And I'm like, oh God, it's got a short tail. Why have I done that? And then I think, oh God, what am I doing? And then you have to remember, I did it for a reason. It had a grey neck, it had a black tail or something. I've done it for a reason, and that's why I've done it. So it's just a note for us. So we're not caught out that as the wool grows, sometimes it will go white. So it's just something to be aware of. But the main spots, like that lamb on the bottom right is quite an example. That's mainly where they'll get it, at the back of the neck and on the tail. But yeah, it's just a thing. Oh, do they? Yeah. But again, that's probably because you're still like percentage as well. It's the thing that, but it's just like, I know you can't be too hard, but I think with your rams, particularly just try to be a bit, you don't want to encourage it too much. If you've got a chance now to not get a problem with it, you're not going to stop it, but we've certainly found by being kind of ruthless with it, we have definitely improved it in our flock and don't get as much. You're still going to get it. Anyone that says they don't get it is lying. Everyone gets it. They just hide it out the back so you don't see it. If you notice on Instagram, Facebook, I don't put any of those on. I don't have any of it. On social media, I'm hiding it all. But yeah, we all get it. If anyone says they don't, it's there. They're just not, it's not a thing you go around promoting, but it will never stop. You won't stop it. But just selective breeding, you can definitely narrow it down. Right. So this goes on to the Villanelle video, which you all know. So this kind of, I think, well, really, just let Villanelle do this bit, I think. I think she kind of epitomizes Kerry style, Kerry attitude, and what you kind of, as breeders we like, this is what we want our Kerrys to look like. I like them to have this attitude and sass and style about them, if you know what I mean. that was after the show you saw earlier with the rosette on her back where she was supreme. This was after that show. And it's funny because normally at the shows, very often they show them and they let them loose. So in the ring, you let them loose so they can walk freely. And we were showing two ewes, this one here and Villanelle. And a lot of people liked Tom's one that he was showing Vera because she was big, strong, beautifully marked, whereas Villanelle was a bit quirky. Nightmare to show. I showed her. She was a nightmare. And everyone's like, oh, no, I prefer Vera. I'm like, no, Villanelle has attitude. No one saw her off the halter. I said, you need to see her off the halter, and then you would see. And it's funny, that show she actually won with the rosette before. She went in her class, showed her. I went in the interbreed class, and she was an absolute nightmare. She was up in the air, jumping, grinding her teeth. I was like, Villanelle, come on, give me a break. She would not stand. I had to keep walking around. And again, I didn't think I was in with a chance because she just showed so badly. She wouldn't stand still. I had to keep, everyone else was stood beautifully in this line, and I had to keep walking around. Every time I stopped, she kept jumping out. Luckily, every time the judge came, I was like, right, stand still, Villanelle. And it's funny, when she asked for the rosettes to come out, and I was just kind of stood there thinking, well, this is embarrassing, because I'm like, she's been so bad. The commentator actually said, this ewe, she came in the ring, she had so much attitude, so much style, and hands down to this gentleman who's held on to her doing it. And she won interbreed then, and it was really funny. She then had to go to parade at the show. So we went into the main ring. So you go into the main ring, obviously all the horses, cattle, all the champions parade. And over this, oh God, if this ever goes on the internet, they might see this. I'm sorry if this goes on the internet and they ever see this. So we have people there, I don't know if you guys know them, Jimmy Doherty and Adam Henson. They're quite big agriculture farming people, have like celebrities.
They kind of present
They present like cooking programs and farming programs with us. So they're quite involved with the show. And Adam Henson breeds Kerrys as well. So he came up, obviously we went up. You have the champion pig, the champion cow, the champion horse, the champion sheep. So you're in the main ring of the whole show, and they go forward and you all compete against each other. And they were like, wow, this sheep is beautiful, she's lovely. And Adam Henson, he was a bit of a farmery celebrity with us. He was like, oh, I've got Kerrys. Can I have a picture with her? So obviously I was kind of scooted off, like, we don't want you in the picture, I'm like the celebrity here. And I said to him, be careful. I said, she's called Downwood Villanelle. One of the other people like, Villanelle from Killing Eve, the program. Like, oh my God, that's brilliant, she's so sassy. He didn't kind of listen. And I said, look, just be careful, don't give her too much halter. She's a bit of a handful. And he just turned around to me and went, I've got Kerry Hills, I know what they're all about. You probably know Adam, and someone might know about those. So he was a bit like, I've got this, I've got Kerry Hills. It's like, this is Villanelle. And with that, she erupted, she floored him, hit him to the ground, he fell on the ground, she fell on the ground, all escalated, and then he let go of her. And she just went in this massive ring, didn't she? Somewhere someone on social must have me. I just went, oh my God, I'm never going to catch this sheep. And Villanelle just disappeared into the distance. Show. And he was like, God, you didn't tell me she was that sharp. I was like, I tried to tell you she was a handful. And then finally we managed to catch her, and I had to be like escorted out of the ring because she just erupted, didn't she? I couldn't hold her. She just went mad, and they were like, do you want to go out of the ring? I'm like, yeah, I do. I want to go out. So she kind of epitomizes, I think, a bit of style, sass. And that's a picture of her. That's her as a little lamb there. I think she's maybe a day old there, 2 days old there. You can kind of see what I mean. That she just had it from a lamb. She came out and she just had this sort of look at me attitude. And whenever you're in the field, when they're growing up, you'd get them in. Anyone that would come and see them would just like, oh God, who's that? She'd always come to the front of the pack. She'd always be there. She'd always stomp her foot. And she just always had this kind of look at me attitude of like, I'm the bee's knees and I kind of know it, if you know what I mean. So that's what we kind of like to breed into them, because when you're in the show ring, that's kind of like your little, if you know what I mean, you want a sheep that's kind of cocky. And again, you have when they're little lambs, they're born and you can see them, and we have a few that you look at them and you go, oh, that one's nice, but they'll hide behind their mum and they're like, oh, I'm kind of nice, but I'm a bit shy. Villanelle was like that. She was like, out of the way, mum, I'm sending for attention here. They just kind of have it. So that's kind of what we like, isn't it? We like them to have a bit of attitude about them, really, a bit of presence.
No, we'll move on.
Oh God, we've got a video, so it might play up now.
Oh no, there you go.
Oh, so there, that was actually when we were showing, and that's when the king, our now king, came into the ring. So that was just quite a nice picture too. Yeah, basically. So you've got, I did see what a halter here.
Yeah.
To kind of get them on a halter. So we kind of, with lambs, we probably start when they're about 3 months old. probably maybe a month, 5 weeks before the show, just because you want them, obviously when they're halter training, they will roll in the dirt and stuff like that. So I want to get them leading halter training properly before I wash them and start trimming them, because I don't want to wash them and trim them and then halter train them and they all roll in the dirt and the dust. And so probably about 4 or 5 weeks before a show. And I've learned now the easiest way to halter train, because they are quite spirited carries. Some take to it, some hate it. We just tend to get them on a halter, tie them sort of so far on a hurdle, some are safe, some are secure, rope so far that if they do fall down, they're not going to kind of hang themselves on the halter. But I tend to leave them to it, but I won't just disappear. I'll always be in the yard or be around the building somewhere, so they're not just left, particularly the first day or two, and then every day for sort of half an hour, I would just tie them up while they're still on their mums, maybe, just because that comforts them a bit, and just tie them all up on a hurdle somewhere they can't hurt themselves. And then I would walk away and just leave them for half an hour every day, bring them in that, and just tie them up for half an hour and just leave them. Then after about a week, they seem to just stand there then. They kind of get used to it. They can just work out the halter themselves. And very often you'll tie them up, they'll let you catch them then, you tie them up the halter and they'll just stand there. And very often they chew their cud, then they're much happier then, they've relaxed. And then I'll start to try and teach them to walk, which is a bit... Again, some are fine, some don't like it. Sometimes it works better if we take two, don't we? Well, sometimes we might get a sheep that already leads. So say
walking away from the flock, like away
yeah.
from the farm.
They're better away from home, aren't they? So we'll take them down the driveway because they don't go down the drive. If they're around the farm and the buildings, they tend to play up. But if we take them down a driveway where they don't go, I think they're so distracted by the scenery and where are we going somewhere different? Yeah. They almost kind of bond to you a bit more and they'll be like, oh God, keep an eye, I don't know where I'm going. So they seem to go better. And sometimes we'll take an older, so like this guy here, if he's quiet, maybe use him to go in front and lead a lamb behind him, if you see what I mean. But that, it varies. Some go quite well, others play up and they play dead on the halter. I'm like, oh, get up.
Some are really quick, aren't they? Some are a little bit longer. But we try not to get them too trained, if you know.
Yeah, like I said to Tracy, it's like, I learned hard. We had a tup, the first time we showed was called Wesley. He did very well the first time we showed him, and I was nobody in the carry world. They didn't know who I was. I just came out as this like 70-year-old lad. I had this sheep, and they're like, he was this kid. And he did well. He won a lot of stuff. Obviously, I then was quite new in carries, and I fussed him and pampered him and made him a pet of him. And when it comes to showing, that's a no-no. You don't want him to be like that. So I brought him as a yearling ram thinking, oh yeah, I've got a really nice ram here. I was then told that I sport him. He didn't do very well. I was at the Rowe show, which is like the biggest show in Europe, thinking, yay, I've got my nice ram. I wasn't placed at the top. I was down the line because my sheep jumped on me in the ring, ripped my number off me, and just stood there like a dog on a lead. And I thought, oh, he's really good. And they were like, Jim, no, you've spotted him. He's sport for showing because his ears were down. He was just too chilled. So, yeah, for show with us, again, goes to presence, and you want that eye-catchy. A judge isn't drawn to a sheep. And it's even the same. It can be the best sheep in the ring, but if it doesn't show itself, it won't catch your eye and you won't put it up. And we've had some, it's the best sheep, and I'm looking at the exhibitor, I'm like, you need to get that sheep's ears up, you need to get it to show itself. For me to justify putting you first, it's got to, if it's looking like a dog on a lead, it's not going to really catch your eye. Yeah, so we just kind of get them. Everyone thinks we spend hours. I don't. Whether they're just lucky or I have a good rapport with my sheep, I don't know. Because they always say with the sales, don't they? The sales sheep, we very, very rarely halter train. And there's proper photographers and they take pictures and like, your sheep just stand. We are quite lucky, they are quite good. I think it's how you selectively breed them, I do. I think it is. I think we're very selective how we breed them and they just stand naturally square. You kind of pick and choose these things and they always stand quite well. So yeah, we kind of get them so they're just leading, don't we? I don't overdo it. I just get it so they're a bit, I kind of will follow you. Because when you go to a show, they are going to be in the ring with other sheep. So that kind of encourages them to go as well. But you still want them to be a bit like, oh, who's that? Do you know what I mean? If the judges come and you want them to be a little bit ears pricked. So we don't tend to, but it depends what you want to do. If you want them to be pets and stuff like that, do what you want to do. If you want them to be pets and friendly, then yeah, that's fine. But if you want to go into showing and kind of do well with it, you want them to be a bit attitudey and a bit like Villanelle to get the judge's eye. And again, in interbreeds, you need that to stand out, don't you? You want a sheep you've got to catch the judge's eye. And the way to do it with the Kerry is to have it, if you know what I mean, head up, ears up, looking at the judge. So that's what you kind of want to go for. But you just have to decide what you want to do, I think. And you guys you're going to get into the showing, but I think it's just, and your setup as well, isn't it? We're lucky, our fields all come into our, well, not my garden, my mum's garden, which is a bit of a touchy subject sometimes when I'm running like 50 sheep across a garden and through a flower bed. Sorry, mum. But yeah, it depends on your setup and stuff. Ours will kind of come to a bucket sometimes when they're being fed. They'll come to a bucket, but the moment the grass comes and the ewes aren't being fed, they're like, see ya, don't want to know you now. We've had our food from you, we're gone. Yeah. There's a few that will come up and eat out of a bucket, but generally we just ran them up with a quad bike and they come with a quad bike, and it was just easy for us. When they're at my aunt's, they'll just follow a bucket when we teach them there to come. And we send a few away to grass keep, so friends have fields that we go and graze. I don't have a sheepdog or anything and my quad bike's not there, so I will teach them. We have like a pen there and we teach them to come to be fed in the bucket, and then they learn, then we go to get them. We teach them to go in the pen, look, there's your food, and then hopefully when we go to get them, they just go in the pen, eat the food, we shut the pen, then reverse the trailer up to the pen, and they can be tricky.
Quite often if they see me,
yeah, this causes arguments, as you can probably, because they're used to me going.
Jim sees them every day. I don't so much because we don't live where they are. So if I'm there, normally I'm helping Jim do something, and the sheep are like,
they're so suspicious.
And that means that something's going to happen.
Yeah, they know. It's so silly, but they do. And the first time we sent them away, some ewe lambs away to grass keep, they were so quiet. I was like, oh, we're just going to get them. We need to get them off the grass keep now. And a friend of ours got quite a nice setup. So I thought, I'll just get them in the pen as normal. So I said, oh, you can come with me. We're going to do it. Two of us got out of the car. They would not come near me. They were gone. I was like, what is wrong with them? They just normally follow me in this pen. So I was like, it's because you're here. Oh, I might as well go, it's my fault. So I was like, you go and sit in the car. And like that, I said, let's just go sit in the car a minute. So we went and sat in the car for like 10 minutes. And I was like, let's just pretend. I got out of the car with the bucket. They were like there. So they know there's two of you. It's normally just Jim. And it's funny now with them at my aunt's, all the retired ones that go to my aunt's. And they're massive. They will not come to her. They do not want to know her. She will call them. They're like, I go there every week to go and see them. My car's in got pulled up and they're like, oh, hold up, that's Jim, isn't it? Yeah. And I go, all right, girls. And they're up to the gate. And so they're funny, the Kerrys. They like routine. But that's how we work. Yeah, that's how we work. It kind of works for us. But I think you just have to do with what works for you guys, really, and makes life easy. Because I think we have quite a few Kerry breeders that start with them. And if they're not like this, they just can't deal with them. They're just like, you know what, they're too high strung for us, I can't deal with it. And then we'll lose them as breeders because they're just like, no, my setup's not right for these, I can't do it. So I just think do whatever makes life easy for you, because we don't want to lose you guys' interest in them because they're, yeah. You have 5 rams but 45 ewes? I'm like, yeah, it's a long story. Like Victor, who we brought back, he broke the record. He produced, like this whole team for us. He was sold. He came back to the flock. He is related to a few of ours, but we still have ewes we can use. He's old, so we still have him. He's only with 6 ewes, but out of those 6 ewes, he still produces good, so we keep him. I think showing people that breed for showing, they're not like commercial breeders, are we? We're kind of they'd laugh at us. Commercial breeders are, oh God, you guys, why? You can't have a ram for like 6 ewes, but our bloodlines are very important to us, so we want to keep the bloodlines. So we had Victor back knowing that we have ewes that we can use them for, and then we might use our own ram, and we've got a ram now called Emmett. Emmett, he's very nice, he's well bred, he's actually related to Moses and Victor, but he's like the last of a line, so we've kept him back because I want to get that bloodline back a bit more. But obviously, no, we will buy. We have swapped a ram this year with someone. Only the rams we've got at the moment, only one of them is our own. The others are rams we've bought in because obviously we have to keep new bloodline coming in all the time. We did do a bit of a swap with someone this year, only because we've kept some rams on for a 3rd year, which you don't very often do. So they were just getting a bit close to some of our females, so we swapped. We wanted to keep the ram, we didn't want to sell him, we still wanted to use him. But a friend of ours lambs a bit later, so we were like, oh, hang on a minute, if you lamb later than us, we could borrow your ram, you could borrow ours when we're not using it. So we've done a bit of a swap this year just for a few weeks. But yeah, generally sort of every 2 years. To be honest, we're always on the lookout for a new ram because a good ram is hard to find. So if I see a new ram, I would just buy it anyway. So we're always on the lookout for a good ram. Even if I don't need one, I will need one at some point. So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled. If there's nice rams, I always will try and find it.
Okay, how many elite flocks do you say there are? When I say elite, I mean good, really good flocks.
I don't want to rock the boat now.
Oh God.
Cut.
When you say a kind of flock?
I don't know.
Dozens?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, maybe not that. Yeah.
You don't have to name names.
No.
I was just interested.
There's a few that are at the top that are always. There's always you see on social media, don't you? The main names.
Yeah.
But it chops and changes. People, it's like when you buy new bloodlines, you don't know how they're going to mix with your ewes. So you can be the top one year, and then the next year your top's not clicked with your ewes, and then they come up the rankings, and they're like, we're beating you this year. So it varies. You're buying different bloodline, you don't know.
Yeah, when we buy tups, you might buy them for different reasons. Like we got 2 2-year-olds in me. One's like way more kind of showy and upright, and the other one's much more stocky. And
Yeah. That's quite a good thing to bring up, actually.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's quite a good thing to bring up. Yeah, so it's hard to get power, bone, sharpness, presence, everything all in the sheep. It's hard to get it all. When you get power, when you get presence and sharpness and alertness, you tend to lose power. So you're big. That's why Victor was very unusual. This chap here, here, for a big boned, powerful sheep, he was very alert, so that's what drew us to him. But it's very hard to find a sheep that brings all of that. So look at rams. When you're buying rams, look at rams. Ideally, you need to look at your ewes first. Find the faults in your ewes and buy a ram that will improve those faults in your ewes. So if you want your ewes to be more powerful, you want to buy a ram that's got more bone. But in doing that, you might lose the sharpness a bit. So we play with sheep a bit. We, like Tom just said, we've got 2 different rams from a different breeder, selected for different reasons. One is very stylish, one is very showy, heads up in the air, big ears, he's very showy. The other one is lower to the ground, longer, wider, very good bone. So he's bringing the bone and the power. So he then goes on our finer, showier ewes, our very showy ewes. He's gone on those. The ewes that are stronger and more boned, but maybe not so showy, the showier ram has gone on those. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. It's hard to get it all together. So we're chopping and changing every year, really, aren't we? Yeah. You just have to look at and every year when you get a crop of lambs, you look at them and go, they're very nice, they're pretty, I'd like them a bit more powerful. So then you back in your head, you're like, right, next year when you get a new ram, we need to get something bigger and more powerful to try and get the size back in them. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. It's hard to, I think just have to look at your ewes and work out what direction you want them to go in and what you want to improve in your ewes, and then buy a ram. I think sometimes people just go out and buy a ram just because, he's pretty, he's very nicely marked, without considering their ewes, and it's like, well, no, you need to buy him to match your ewes and improve them, if you see what I mean. Some people just go to the sale and buy a sheep because, he's very nice, Kerry, but you want it to kind of complement your ewes. And we sold some ducks. It was ridiculous. They sold £600, 2 pairs of ducks. It was like a record. It was ridiculous.
$500 pair of ducks.
Honestly, it was a joke. It was they're little tiny call ducks. I had them as a kid. As a little kid, I had them, and I grew up, and then got older, and moved into my sheep and whatnot. And then Tom and I bought our first house together, and we went to a show, and there was people selling poultry. I was like, can I get some little call ducks again? I love my little call ducks. And I picked some little call ducks, and the chap doing it, he's like, you know what you like. You've picked the best ones. And I wanted some other coloured ones. We bought them. Anyway, cut long story short, we bred them, ended up with ducks everywhere, and took them to this sale in Carlisle, and it was a bit of a joke with the Kerry lot. They're like, oh God, Jim's here with his ducks as well. We rocked up. It was like, as Tom calls it, like the travelling circus. We went to this sale with a load of sheep, and it was like 18 little ducks, and it's like a 4-hour car drive. And core ducks, do you guys have core ducks over here? They're loud. You sit in a car with 18 core ducks for 4 hours. So I wasn't in the good books. We got there and it was mad, wasn't it? The ducks had to go one place, the sheep had to go somewhere. So the ducks were chucked in the pen, we left it, and all the Kerry lot were laughing because we've got our ducks there. And we kind of left them to it, and we focused on the sheep and did well with the sheep, and then sold the sheep. And we went, we better go and see the duck sell. So you had a big ring, you weren't where the ducks were, it was just a big auction, and you sat in these chairs and we're selling. And we're like, these are our lots coming in. And we were like no one in the poultry world. We just thought, we've got too many ducks, we need to sell the ducks. This is a good place to sell them because people buy them from Ireland. So we went there just thinking I'd sell them and just cut down my duck numbers. And they started selling, didn't they? And they were going for like, I don't know, £60 a pair, £100 a pair, $2.50 a pair. We're like, oh, £2.50 a pair, that's quite good. And there were some that were lovely. We knew they were nice, but I just thought they might make a couple of £100. Anyhow, they came in the ring and I was like, well, these are our best ones. And they rattled on and it got to like 300, 350, 400, 500. And we're like, what? For ducks? And they got to £600. They sold, and then the next pair came in that were just the same, and they went, oh, same pair, same breeder, Jim Rowe, where are we starting these? 400? And then someone just went, yep. And it was like a record. None had ever made that money before. It was ridiculous. And we were like this celebrity poultry breeder for like, it was so funny. I had all these friend requests on Facebook, and all the way home from Carlisle, my phone was going, just vibrating. How many have you got? Have you got any more? I was like, no. But I got to talk to a breeder, and he said with his, he said you get 20% show quality, really good ones, 40% breeder quality, and that's not right. No, 60, what was it? 40%, that was it, 20% show, 60% breeder, and 20% no good. And it kind of, I think it kind of is. Yeah, I've noticed now when we're on duck still, but they kind of are. When you actually look at them, and again you see them when they're little, and you, oh, that's nice little, that's nice little. When I look at them, and I have that in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of right. When you look at them, you have like, oh, there's like, that one's really, really good, that one's kind of okay, and that one's not very good. And I'm like, oh, that is kind of like 20, 40, kind of, or 60. And I kind of think that, it varies with different types and stuff, isn't it, how they click with your use.
Probably, on average, probably would register more.
Ducks.
No, you did
Sorry?
They're just sheep.
I know, it's crazy.
They're just sheep too, so.
Yeah, they said the same with sheep. They said
$100 for a duck?
the money we came back from that sale was ridiculous, wasn't it? The joke was, I think they made more than some of the sheep.
Yeah.
The check for the ducks was more than the sheep. So that was quite funny. But yeah, I think it is probably kind of around that, isn't it?
On average, we would register more now than we did 16 years.
Oh yeah. Obviously now we're doing it for a long time. I like to think that all this hasn't gone to waste and we've got better. So yeah.
And like Jim said, we breed from our own sheep more. Obviously, we used to buy more in, and so that helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it probably would be, because you get, and also our standard of what we would class as a show sheep is different to other people's.
Yeah.
So it's quite hard to kind of, So it's like we sold a couple back and they're like, why are you selling your show lambs? I'm like, oh, they're not show lambs, we've got better ones at home. So, but our standard of what we would class as a good show sheep might be different to other breeders' show sheep, if you know what I mean. So sometimes they think we're selling our show lambs. I'm like, oh no, we're keeping our better ones at home, but we obviously can't keep them all. So we have to sell some, and they're not cheap to feed and produce. So I got bills to pay. So they can't all stay, sadly. Sometimes like, I don't want to sell that one, but if I've got sisters or something, then I'll be like, oh yeah, like I said to you before, markings and stuff, if they're a little heavily marked for us or something, although they're really nice, if I've got the bloodline, I'll sell them. So I kind of think probably around that, though, isn't it? Yeah.
Bored.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to show who's boss. That's all right. Any other questions or anything? Yeah, we're about anyway.
Yeah, no, you guys are awesome. I think this is probably a good time. Maybe we can break for some food.
Yeah.
Use the restroom.
Oh, food's
and
arrived.
we'll- eat a little more food, and then I'm sure we're gonna have a million questions during the.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, when we're doing that, we can
Yeah.
explain things while we're doing that.
Yeah, let's do it.